Hello and welcome in, everyone. This is Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and welcome back to the Mad Science Lab podcast. Today, we are moving towards the end of the Sleepers, Breakouts, and Busts series, and here to help me continue on with it is Corey Bittner. Corey, thanks for joining me again. Always great to have you, man.
Totally. Thanks for having me again. I always forget you have the Breaking Bad theme as your little intro, and it always gets me in the mood to watch the Breaking Bad. I love that show.
Yeah, Hutch Brown has been posting about it. He's never seen it lately, or he's never seen it before, and he's been posting lately, and I'm going, oh man, and I'm kind of like reliving it vicariously through his episode by episode tweet, and I'm going, I fucking hated that character. I love that episode, but
I saw
by
that
the end of the show, I think I liked Walt and I liked Saul, and everyone else I pretty much hated. Oh, Mike Ehrmantraut was good, but
I felt bad for Jesse, but it's also like he kind of got himself into a lot of that.
No. By about season 3, I'm going, oh my God, this fucking guy's so whiny. Someone shoot him already. I don't care. The only person I hated more than Jesse was his wife, Skylar. Oh my God, she was annoying.
I think the greatest of all time though was Gus. I was mad when they killed him.
Yeah, I loved him. Yeah. Loved him. Loved Mike Ehrmantraut. Like big fan of Hank and Gomi. Oh, yeah. Most of them don't make it through, but
see, man, I haven't seen this show since I finished it. I haven't gone back and rewatched it. Now I kind of want to.
It's funny because I've rewatched it 3 or 4 times, probably, once every year or two. I get the itchy because it doesn't take you all that long. It's only 5-6 seasons. It's one of those shows where each time you watch it, you go through and go, oh shit, I never noticed that. You notice little things, but I also have the controversial take that Better Call Saul was better. I like that one better.
Better. I haven't finished that. I've seen 2 seasons, I think.
I think I got through 3 seasons. Then I got separated and sidetracked from a lot of my shows. Then the last year or 2, I've tried to catch up and finish all of them. I think I finished Better Call Saul last year. It definitely didn't finish as strong. Well, okay, the last 1 or 2 seasons weren't as strong, but then they bring some characters back from Breaking Bad, so it ends strong, but it kind of lagged in the middle, but it was good. It was good.
All right. I need to finish it, so I'll get on that. And then
there's one character that you really like in Better Call Saul, and you're sitting there and you got that feeling of dread because you're going, this character wasn't in Breaking Bad. What happens here? And you're going, but in the end, you get through it and you find out what happened to that character, so.
Okay.
I won't give you any spoilers if you haven't finished it. So
I appreciate that.
Before we get into it, you want to tell everyone where they can find you and your work?
Yeah. We're pretty much on all the podcatchers. We tried to do a little bit of YouTube. I think we might be getting back on YouTube, but
I don't think you are, because I was on the show last night and I couldn't find a YouTube feed for it. We've been
trying to work with it, but
the Spotify feed. So
yep. So I think we're trying to get back on that, but for now it's just all the podcatchers with the Fantasy Football RPG podcast. We talk a lot of Dynasty, a lot of news. We try to keep it light, keep it funny. But yeah, it's a fun show. I do it with Cash Money Mike Kashuba and a couple of my friends, and yeah, it's a good time.
I think I was on it last night. I'm trying to remember who else was on it. I know Mike was on it.
The other 2 guys they're usually on it are Eric. Yeah, Eric and Evan.
Eric was on it. Evan was on it for a few minutes, but had something going on at his house and had to bail 5 minutes in. So I think it was Mike and Eric for the majority of the show. But it was good. It was good.
They treat you good?
Yeah, I've had Mike on a whole bunch of times, and he's we've interacted quite a bit on Twitter, so I'm pretty familiar with Mike. Don't think I've ever met the Eric guy before, so that was a first.
Yeah,
he was a lot quieter.
I've never left the show in the hands of someone else, so it was my first time stepping away and letting Mike run the show, and so I was a little nervous about it, but I figured he'd do a good job. So
yeah, he did good.
Good.
All right, well, let's get into it. We have your first player. That would be your sleeper, if I can get up on the fucking screen. Your sleeper is Dolphins running back Jeff Wilson. Fantasy Pros has him projected for RB 36, 647.9 rushing yards, 4.3 touchdowns, 21.8 receptions for 163.5 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. Why are you in on Jeffrey Wilson?
Well, when you asked me for a sleeper, I wanted to dig deep. I figured you're doing a bunch of these. There's probably going to be a bunch of people having, sleepers that you're going to talk a whole bunch
You'd
about.
be amazed how many people take the fucking layup and give me wide receiver 8 as their sleeper. And it's like, thanks, buddy. I can really work with this. You went wide receiver 54, 164th overall. So I can work with that. Okay, so fantasy, I never even double checked that. So Fantasy Pros has him projected to be running back 36. Did I read that right? His current ADP is running back 54. Holy shit. Sorry. I'll let you get back into it, but I was scrolling through NFFC trying to find him, and I was like, that's a huge fucking discrepancy. So
yeah, I've been looking at that too. I mean, I'm looking right here. I check Bulletproof usually because they aggregate like a bunch of sleeper
that's
data.
what you guys used last night. I had never used it before.
It's a pretty useful tool, and he's sitting down there at RB 65, which I was just like, okay, so he's basically free. You're getting him at the end of the 18th round. And in my opinion, he has as decent a shot as any other guy on that roster to be the main show at RB for the Dolphins.
He was the best of the two last year. Like, I get it. Yeah. Everyone's buying in on A-Chain. I don't think that's happening. They don't bring back 2 veterans to give it all to a rookie. And last year, I know because my main work league, I won it. And I had both of them. I had Mostert and Wilson filling out my flex. So I had one of them every week. I had to decide who to play. And when it came down to it, come the last few weeks of the season and the playoffs, I had Wilson rolling and Mostert on my bench, whether it be through injury or production. So Wilson was definitely the better of the two, and I think will be the best of the 3. You can keep going, and I'm going to see if I can find, never mind, Raheem Mostert right here, RB 51. So Mostert is going 10 picks ahead of him.
And I just don't get that. I mean, you're looking at Mostert as maybe a guy that can carve out a role, but A-Chain's is just
42 or RB 42 at 118 overall. So I can get Mostert, 27 picks later, and Wilson 37 picks later. Good God, why would anyone have A-Chain in redraft?
It makes no sense to me, him going 3rd out of the 3, especially with what you said, him being the better of the 3 towards the end of the season. A-Chain, I think, will have a couple of home run plays. That's kind of what he's built for, but he is not built for like a workhorse kind of role. And so when I'm looking at this roster, I see a guy that needs a cane to get around in Mostert, and Jeff Wilson, who's been in the system way back from when McDaniels was a part of the 49ers. Right. So
Wilson and Mostert, they're both old and relatively old and unexciting. And then we have the exciting new rookie in. And this is the problem. I expect those ADP gaps to level out a bit as we get the casuals back in. But for the most part, the ADP, I don't even know if I've changed the range on that. I could update it here so that it's only from, it is. It's from July to August. So it's a month. But for the most part, the people who are drafting in July are the diehards. The diehards play Dynasty. The Dynasty people overvalue youth. This is why we have A-Chain going 40 picks ahead of the better running backs on the roster. So I think this will level out a bit as we get the casuals back who aren't going to know who the hell Devon A-Chain is, but that's a ridiculous gap for redraft. I get it in Dynasty you want him, but why the hell would you be taking a 30-pick discount, not take a 30-pick discount on Wilson or Mostert? But
I totally agree. I think Wilson is probably, out of the 3 guys, at the very least, I think he's going to get the majority of the goal line touches as an RB. I don't think they're going to shove Tua in the middle of a scrum pile with all of his health concerns as much as they'll probably just try to slip Jeff Wilson in there for the TD.
I'm looking him up here on my sleeper. I had him, like I said, I had him in the one league, and I remember playing him. I don't think he won me any weeks, but I don't ever remember him being a liability where I was scared to start him. So, week 1, he sucked, and then he goes from week 2 to week 5, where it's anywhere between 13 and 25. Then he has a couple of down weeks where it's 2, 7, 6 in the middle of the season. Weeks 9 and 10 and 12, he goes off for 15, 25, 15, and then there's a bye. Looks like he has 2 or 3 bad weeks before missing a week, so I'm going to assume he sucked with injuries. And then he comes back for me in the playoffs, and he wasn't exciting, 11, 12, and 14, so he did nothing exciting, but I got him off of waivers.
Yeah,
He
you
was
didn't
my
need him to
flex
be
play.
exciting, right?
Yeah, he
You
was
just
just I
needed him
plugged him
to.
in. Yeah,
Yep.
I plugged him
Plug
in
and
as my
play.
flex, and it was like everybody else go win me a week. You just put me up your 12 points, and I'm good with that. I don't give a shit. So
Absolutely, especially with like the landscape at the end of the year where you're looking for guys. You're trying to find guys to plug and
disaster.
play. Jeff Wilson, man, that's who I'm seeing as a guy. Like when you said sleeper, I think Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, and it's like not everybody can be exciting. Like I get it. You want to go into a season with upside, and everyone wants that guy who has week winning 40 point game potential. But when I'm going into the playoffs and I've got a lineup stacked with like I had my quarterbacks were Lawrence and Fields, so there's plenty upside there. Then I had Saquon and Mixon. I had Higgins, Godwin, and another solid receiver. Then I had my tight ends were Hawkinson and Waller. I've got my flex spot left. That was, it was always my remaining wide receiver, my tight end, or because Waller didn't play for most of it, so I didn't have him.
Yeah.
But my last flex spot was being filled out by boring guy. I'm fine with that. Everyone else on that team is a huge upside play. Give me Mr. Boring just 12 points during the playoffs. I don't care. I got 12 points in the bag. I'm good. So
yeah, where you can get him, he's literally free.
He's free.
So why not?
He's free. We'll move on here to your breakout. That would be Kansas City wide receiver Sky Moore, who I had as one of my can't miss prospects coming out of college.
Ooh,
So
nice.
far, I'm wrong. I had 8 of them, I believe, last year. 8 of them last year, and I think I have to look at how many I had this year. It's probably it ends up being about 8 every year. Out of the 8, I think he was the only one who hasn't been a big success so far. Out of that year, I'm trying to think who else. The next closest who would have been considered maybe a bust was Pickens. Oh, and McBride, who really hasn't had an opportunity. So McBride and Moore are me, the two guys I'm waiting to take a victory lap on here if they get there. He is projected for wide receiver 72. So you went beyond sleeper and went comatose here. Rushing stats projected are negligible. 45.4 receptions, 591.2 receiving yards, 3.3 touchdowns. Why do you think Sky Moore breaks out this season?
Well, yeah, I don't think you'll be waiting too long to take that victory lap. I am very in on Sky Moore. I think that there's a big divide happening right now between him and Kadarius Toney as who is going to be that prospective wide receiver 1 for the Chiefs.
You would think, but according to ADP, it's not as, Kadarius Toney is still consistently ahead, and I don't know how the hell that's a thing.
I feel that, and I think what it comes down to for me is, can you really place the bet and feel good about Kadarius Toney and his health? I think that he's a ticking time bomb. Whether or not he comes back and can have some good games, I think there's no doubt that he will. But when I look at Sky Moore, I just see his ceiling as being elite status, where he can be a consistent performer on the best offense in the league, if not the best, a top 3 offense in the league. So I see Sky Moore as a guy that can easily break out, that classic year 2 breakout for wide receiver that we used to understand is kind of the benchmark for wide receiver until, we had a bunch of rookie wide receivers come out year 1 and flash, and now everyone's super spoiled. And if a guy does breakout year 1, it's like, oh, this guy's a flop. It's like, no, guys, I mean, year 2 breakout still happens. And I think Sky Moore is lined up really well to be that guy. I mean, what did he do in college? He finished his college years as like a 1,300 yard, 10 touchdown guy. And the biggest thing about him was his 40% target share, which is elite, like elite, 99th percentile elite, compared to, I think Kadarius Toney had a maybe 20% target share. Obviously different offenses.
Yeah, obviously, different quality of competition. But
no
Kadarius Toney, I don't want to bet on Kadarius Toney against a garbage receiver, let alone someone that I had high hopes for. You are right. I said it for the last week here, and it looks like the ADP's leveled out a bit. Toney's going 96. Sky Moore's going 100. How Sky's still going behind him, I have no fucking clue. Like, Sky Moore is someone I think I'm going to go try and make a trade for him after this show. I love Sky Moore. I don't get how he's behind Toney still. This is ridiculous.
I think it's like flashiness, right? It's the Kadarius Toney is kind of the flashier weapon. He is a little shiftier, I guess. But when you look at Sky Moore's traits, he's not too dissimilar from just like the physicality that Kadarius Toney has. He's not quite as fast, but he's still really fast. He's not quite as like electric on the field, but he's still electric on the field.
Yeah, but
I
he's
just think
still on the field. He's on
that's
the
the big thing,
field.
right? And what did Kadarius Toney just do? He
Yeah,
tweaked his
he's hurt
hamstring
already. Yeah, he's hurt.
already.
Yeah, he's Mr. Glass from the what was the Mr. Glass movie or Unbreakable. That's it.
Yeah, Unbreakable. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so when you compare the two, I think it's Sky Moore by landslide to me. And I think that when you look at it like after the season, you're gonna see Sky Moore is clearly the wide receiver one in that offense. And I think he's gonna skyrocket in value after that. Skyrocket, get it? Get a little bit
Nice.
of yeah, thanks.
Nice. I like it. I like it. And I think it's true. But I look at this range here, and there's a couple of rookies I don't mind. Like, I don't mind Zay Flowers. I'd rather have Sky Moore. Michael Thomas is old. I don't really want anyone here. I'm out on Jamison Williams. Quentin Johnson, I don't mind. So aside from this year's rookies, I don't mind Trey Burks. I don't really want anyone else here. It's either this year's rookies or last year's rookies. And I'm taking him over anyone else like Cortland Sutton, Jamison Williams. He's not going to play 6 games. So what the hell are we doing? I don't understand it. Well, the other thing is, Andy Reid offenses are notoriously difficult to learn in year 1, and he can only get better in year 2. So
it's somehow like he comes in for a more like they're even more depleted than they were when they had Tyreek. Like when Tyreek Hill left, they were like, oh my God, who's going to fill the void for Tyreek Hill? And then it was like, oh, well, now we get Juju. Oh, now we lost Juju. So now now they don't have either. So it's like, who's going to step up here? I think it's going to be the guy that can stay healthy.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on to your final player, that is your bust. Indianapolis Colts receiver Michael Pittman, projected to be wide receiver 34, negligible rushing projections, 77.3 receptions for 884.6 yards and 4.3 touchdowns. Why are you out on the Pittman?
Well, a couple things with Pittman. I honestly, his build and his physicality, I do like. It's mostly the fact that the offense is not what I think people are going to expect for him after he, kind of had a decent first couple of years in the league. But he goes to he now has for his quarterback Anthony Richardson. And like Anthony Richardson or not, I'm in the camp of liking him, but I understand the dichotomy between rookie QBs and their wide receivers. It's not good, just historically speaking. It's just not. So all likelihood seems to me that Michael Pittman is in for a down year, especially coming off the board as wide receiver 23, like kind of that, like, back end of a wide receiver 2 range. I don't think he's going to even hit that benchmark. I mean, you got guys like DJ Moore, Jerry Jeudy, Quentin Johnston going ahead of him. I agree with all that, but you have like Brandon Ayuk going after him, and that just doesn't make any sense to me. Treylon Burks is another guy I'd probably take over Michael Pittman. But yeah, to me, I honestly do. I like the player, even though I made a little bit of notoriety for myself comparing him to the next Kenny Golladay. I like the player.
Yeah,
it's the offense that is not really friendly, I think, to his type of role. So yeah, I'm out on Michael Pittman. I'd rather have pretty much any of the guys in the round like leading up to him and in the round after him, and then some.
That's funny because I love the player as a rookie and I had him everywhere. And then after his rookie season, I'm big on even like I've taken a couple of losses. I sold Amon-Ra St. Brown for Eli Mitchell and a second after St. Brown had that. He had that big, what is it, 4 or 5, 6 game stretch, and we're going, yeah, but this can't happen. So I've taken, I look back and I'm going, oh, well, I don't like that one in hindsight, but I this is my thing. I'll take a guy like Pittman. I'll ride him for the 1 year when he is, that offseason, was it not last year? It was the year before, I think, going in where he was just like at a fever pitch where he's like, he was going into that offseason the way Garrett Wilson is going into this one. Yeah. People had him top 12, like he was looking, people had him as high as 5. And I'm going, I forget who I got exactly, but I got a really good player and a number 1 pick that turned into the 3rd overall pick in a super flex draft. And I just said, I don't care. I'm taking this. And I took it and I looked back and I said, well, that was perfect. I sold nice and high on that. And I don't mind it because each year he seems to go on. I like the player less and I like the situation less. He set an NFL record last year.
Did he?
Would you like to know what it was?
Yes, please.
most I don't I gotta forget the stat now. It's either most receptions or targets. I think it's most receptions. No, it's most targets by an NFL player to not crack 1,000 receiving yards.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
one of the two. I don't remember if it's receptions or targets, but
I know we had a lot of targets.
Yeah, it's one of the two. It might be most targets then. Most targets to not crack 1,000 yards because he was at what, 940, 980. So
something like that.
It was not that. It was like what Deontay, most receptions and yards to not have a touchdown in a season. It was not one of those stats you want to be associated with. So
well, it's crazy is like seeing what he did the last 2 years where, yeah, I mean, 2021, you're right. He almost had 1,100 yards. And then last year it was 925. If he, like, what's crazy to me is that if they would have drafted Bryce Young or CJ Stroud, I think I would be complete 180. And I would be like, yeah, let's go Michael Pittman because he's with a guy that isn't going to rush a whole lot with like considerable accuracy talent, especially with CJ Stroud. I think I'd like him a lot more. But with Anthony Richardson, like combined with him being a rookie QB, Anthony Richardson is going to make a lot of damage on the ground. And I just don't see a path for quite as nearly as many targets as Michael Pittman has had the last 2 years.
He's also going in the range where I'm taking a receiver and it's never him. If I always target Ayuk, Deontay, Lockett, that little trio there in the early 60s. If I somehow manage to miss on him, I'm normally grabbing a running back instead. And when it comes around, I'm taking Dotson or Addison. I just, give me these three above him in the same range or these two after him. I want nothing to do with him.
I don't know if you're like on the George Pickens hype train. I don't know if you are or aren't.
Okay, so he was one of my other guys that I deemed to be a can't miss prospect. And
there you go.
I was on him last year. Like he was my guy. And all season he was my guy. And the more I look at it, the more it becomes a case where I've slowly shifted to be a Deontay guy this year because just the volume, it all went to Deontay. And the one-handed catches are driving Pickens' ADP up. The one-handed catches don't help me for fantasy. It doesn't matter. So I think he's a good receiver. I said yesterday, we might've been talking Pickens, but if you told me next year he was a top 5 receiver in Dynasty, I would believe you. If you told me he was playing in the XFL, I would also believe you. There's everything from target issues to character concerns. He's a total whack job.
He would dominate in the XFL.
He could dominate in the NFL, but there is a wide range of outcomes. And unless three things have to happen. Kenny Pickett has to take a major step forward. He has to turn George Pickens into the target hog instead of Deontay. Matt Canada needs to fucking stop sucking.
Yeah.
Those three things have to happen for my George Pickens prediction to come true. So, and it's just been a case where I don't love Deontay, but Deontay is going as wide receiver 30. Pickens is going as wide receiver 33. Just give me the safety of Deontay. Like I've been going Deontay, even though my heart tells me I was the Pickens guy.
Well, I mean, to bring it back to Pittman, I'd have either of those guys over Pittman personally. I would take Deontay or Pickens.
Oh yeah, without question. That's not even close.
And I think they're going like a round or two after him. So
no, Deontay, it says was going. I just looked. Deontay was going in the same round. He was the beginning of the 60s. Pittman was the end of the 60s.
Okay.
Pickens was more like late 70s, early 80s. So Pickens you could have later.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, that's a wrap. Do you want to take a second here to tell everyone once again where they can find you and your work?
Yeah. Once again, Fantasy Football RPG Podcast. We do it every week. Comes out on Friday. You can find it on the podcatchers. Hoping to be back up on YouTube here pretty soon. But me and Mike Cash, FF, and a couple of our friends, we have guests on all the time. We just had Hutchinson Brown come on. Aaron, you were on with, sorry I couldn't be there, but I was out camping, but you were on the show last night. And yeah, we like to have a lot of fun, drink too much, and talk some fantasy football, Dynasty specifically.
I am so glad Mike finally listened and changed his Twitter handle. I had him on the show 2 or 3 times and had to like quote tweet him after. And I'm going, for fuck's sakes, Mike, change your Twitter. It was like FFRPG pod _LWOS _ Mike Kashu. But I'm going, what the fuck is this, Mike? This is a novel. I'm like,
it's like a Da Vinci Code.
I like shorten your Twitter handle. I need a fucking translator to figure out what this is. Oh, and so finally he messaged me and he said, "Hey man, I listened to a friend of mine and I changed my Twitter handle." I'm like, fucking thank God. So, fuck's sakes, it was 5. I don't even know how we kept it under the character limit. So it was a handful, that's for sure. But
well, I'm getting pressure to get my own because I just use like the FFRPG
I noticed
Twitter.
that. I've quoted you a few times and I was like, the FFRPG pod at the FFRPG pod. I was like, well, that's kind of weird. So
I'm very like anti-social media in general, so it's hard for me to even have a Twitter, but I'm getting a lot of pressure to have my own Twitter like under my name, and I'm like,
I have a personal one too with like 8 followers because I don't want, I keep my football one football and I don't involve my personal life, but my personal life, I have my own separate one for family. So it is not the Mad Scientist, but
I just, man, social media kills me. I get too lost in the sauce. It's way too like, I'm super ADHD. So I'll get notifications and I'm like, oh, now I get absorbed into like Instagram. And I'm like, I can't do
wormhole.
Yeah, it's so dangerous for me.
I never realized how stupid people were until I started seeing, following social media. I was like, this fucking society. It's like, I forget what it was where I was watching where they're like, oh, but that wouldn't, it was some political debate. And they're like, well, but yes, for that to be true, you would have to assume that 50% of the population are retarded. And they're like, oh yeah, at least 50%. And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense now. There's a lot of fucking idiots out there. So.
Yeah, dude. That's why I don't know. Having the one Twitter for just the RPG podcast is one thing, but having 2 to also have my own, I don't know. I don't know if I can do it.
I've learned on Twitter the mute button is a great thing. I don't know how many times I've had someone come on and make like a really strong, well-worded, well-researched, argument, and then have someone comment later when I quote tweet you and be like, no, man, that's fucking stupid. My favorite player is the greatest player. He's the next Joe Montana. And it's like, you're a fucking idiot. I'm not even going to argue with you.
Love those stat-based arguments.
Yeah. It's like, it's literally that player is his Twitter bio pic. And I'm going, well, I'm not going to win this fucking argument no matter what I say. So it's like, let's just mute this moron and move on. So
yeah, the effort you would have to expend to like get them to realize, oh man, I should change my whole Twitter bio and profile picture because you totally convinced me is like next to impossible.
It's not gonna happen, but I love it. The well-worded argument just replied to with, you're a fucking idiot, dude. It's like, great. Since you brought up such a great point, thank you.
My favorite responses to things like that is just to be like, LOL, okay.
I've learned that, just be overly sarcastic with them. I like to respond in GIFs a lot where you can't tell if I'm being an asshole or if I'm being funny or what it is, and just normally assume I'm being a sarcastic asshole and I just don't want to acknowledge you. So I've learned my favorite. I think it's funny when you click on the GIFs and then your favorites come up. There's a whole lot of The Rock and his "shut up, bitch." I apparently tweet that out quite a bit.
Yep, that's a really good one. Yep, there's so many good wrestling ones. Like
I love
WWE,
wrestling, so,
especially the older ones.
316 shirt on. So
nice. Yeah.
So I get the Austin What a lot. So
yeah.
All right. Well, this has been Sleepers, Breakouts, and Busts with Corey Bittner. Once again, I am Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and this has been the Mad Science Lab podcast. Thanks again to Corey for joining me, and thank you all for tuning in. Take care and have a great night, everyone. See you later.